Edoardo Ponti, you wrote The Life Ahead and directed it as well. It's based on the 1975 novel about a Holocaust survivor who takes care of local children and decides to take in a troubled orphan named Momo. So, first off, what inspired you to adapt this novel?
It was a novel that I've loved ever since I was a teenager. I read it, I think, when I was 15, and then I read it again in my 20s. And what really inspired me, first and foremost, was the relationship of love and friendship in between these two completely different people that on the surface are completely different, Madame Rosa and Momo. They're separated by, age, religion, race. They could be no more different than on the surface, and yet really they're just two opposite sides of the same coin. They're both survivors. They've been both raised on the street, and they've been defined by pain and loss, but maybe more importantly by resilience and hope. And that was really what attracted me. The second thing that attracted me very much was the way that Romain Gary, the author of the book, told the film through the point of view of Momo, this 12-year-old immigrant. And, we live in such a segregated society. We all live in the silos of our own thoughts, and we find the opinions of people, if they're not exactly like ours, as something that is almost to be not trusted. And I think the most important thing is to be able to see life through the point of view of someone else. And the book did that so beautifully that I wanted to tell a story that was told through the point of view of this 12-year-old immigrant child. Because being able to see life through the eyes of another is really, in the end, the beginning of empathy.
And the novel had actually been adapted once before into a film in 1977. Did you have a relationship to that film as well? Did you take any inspiration, or did you want to avoid kind of being influenced by that film?
No, I didn't. I had seen it. I had seen it in my 20s, but I hadn't seen it since. I was very much in love with the book. The movie is a beautiful movie starring Simone Signoret, who's a lovely, lovely, wonderful actress. But this movie is our movie is in no way a remake of that. It is based on the same source material, but has nothing to do with the first.
And of course, the star of the film is Sophia Loren, who is your mother, and you've worked with her before as a writer director. What's it like writing a role for her? Did you have her in mind for Madame Rosa for the entire time you were making it?
Yes, when I started, absolutely. When I read the book again, when I reread the book, it was really on the heels of another project that I had done with her, which was an adaptation of Jean Cocteau's Human Voice, which is a tour de force performance of a woman in her room on the phone with the love of her life as he's leaving her for another woman. We just finished that, and I picked up The Life Ahead, the book, and I was so struck by Madame Rosa's character, and the character reminded me not only of my mother, but she reminded me of my grandmother, my mother's mother. The same irreverence, the same fragility, the same kind of no nonsense, sarcastic, somewhat cynical, but yet very fragile and wearing her heart on her sleeve. So it was very much this combination of feeling my mother and my grandmother in that character. And when my mother read the script, she also felt less of herself, but more of her own mother in it. And it was very, very interesting to see those two kind of identities merge in that one character.
And the other main character in that film, of course, is Momo, who is the point of view character of the novel, as you mentioned. But is it challenging to write a child's voice? Because a lot of times you see films and children are more precocious than they would be in real life, or it's hard to kind of dial that in. But did you find that challenging, or did the book give you a really good guidepost for it?
The book gave me a very good guidepost for that. It was because the book was written in the first person, really through the point of view of Momo. A lot of those lines, a lot of that tone, was directly derived from the book. All we needed to do was to contemporize it, to make it a little bit more current, a little bit more the way that people speak today. But the essence of it, the tone of it, Even the poetry of it came very much from the book.
And yeah, the novel was set in France, and the film is set in Italy. Was it an easy transition to sort of change that setting, or were there considerations that went into sort of transplanting this story into an Italian one?
The first consideration for me is when I work with my mother, I always want to give her the opportunity to act in a language that allows her to be her most authentic, real self. And undoubtedly, not only is that the Italian language, but more specifically, it's the Neapolitan dialect of the Italian language. So it was clear for me from the get-go that she would play a Neapolitan woman. So she would speak Italian with a cadence, with a Neapolitan cadence. So it was clear that we were going to transpose it somewhere in Italy to be able to allow her to really be, herself in the most legitimate, authentic sense of that word. And then when it came to choosing Bari, we wanted to find a city that had a similar kind of multicultural DNA as Belleville did in Paris in the 1970s. And Bari, with a very large port, Bari, in fact, is one of the biggest cities in the south. And it is very much a meeting place, a crossroads of different ethnicities, different cultures, different religions. So it really lent itself perfectly to that cultural DNA.
And did any research sort of go into the film in terms of what the migrant experience in Italy is like, or what Madame Rosa's experience maybe during the Holocaust might have been like, or did the book really give you everything you needed?
Well, the book gave a lot, but that wasn't enough, because as a director, if you're going to start guiding people through these worlds and through these characters, you need to be armed with more than just the book. You need to know what you're talking about. So we had many consultants. We had a consultant when it came to the world of prostitution and sex workers in Italy. We had who also had a special also in migrations, and because so we had that. We also had a medical consultant for Madame Rosa's condition, and of course I had many conversations with a rabbi in Italy when it came to the Holocaust. My mother, also being 85, gone through the Second World War, right? She was a child, but she had suffered through the bombings, in Italy at the time. So she could also bring her own experience to that, which was really, there can be more of an authentic experience than having a person who actually went through the Second World War and understands that trauma in a different way, of course. But she also could relate to that pain and understand what that meant. Again, in a very different way from a Holocaust survivor, but you could have a sense of it, at least a sense of it.
Now, there's always a lot of decisions that go into adapting any novel into a film. Was there anything that, being a fan of the novel, that you were sort of devoted to in the book that you really wanted to make sure was in the film, a particular scene or a particular kind of feeling that you wanted to make sure you brought to the audience?
There are two things that really, I knew that this movie had to be about, and we could view from the book, was first and foremost the relationship in between these two people. I mean, that is the heart of the book, and it had to be the heart of the film. But also a certain sense of magical realism. A certain sense of, this is a story rooted in the streets, rooted in truth, and yet there's something about it that makes it feel a little bit above that, a little bit magically realistic, a little bit like, it's not a tale because that's too big a word, but there's a contours of something that isn't completely real at the same time, while embracing complete authenticity. And that was a tightrope that we always tried to walk through color, through music, try to bring, because what happens with children is that they're so present in life that their very presence makes them feel slightly elevated. They're so present that they're slightly above reality at the same time. And to try to infuse the film with that feeling of what it truly feels like to be a 12-year-old. That was important to me.
And what do you hope that an audience will take away from this adaptation of the film now in 2020, as opposed to how the story might have been received and what was culturally in the air in 1975, 1977?
The movie spoke then and speaks today to the importance of being seen and heard. That power comes through feeling seen and feeling heard, and we can give each other that power just by being open to one another. And that gives you a power to feel realized. It gives you a power to know that you have opportunities in life. Sometimes opportunities in life come from just the fact that you have felt heard by someone or seen by someone, and that's a beautiful lesson for people to come away with, I think.